Greetings, this is Nick Bocott with Sweetwater. Welcome to GearFest 2020, the online version. And I have a man to my left on screen who needs no introduction whatsoever, but I'm going to do it anyway. Some people know him purely as the Reverend, others know him as BFG, some who are close to him know him as a friend of Eric Clapton. It gives me huge pleasure to have with us today Billy F. Gibbons from that little band from Texas, that little old band from Texas, ZZ Top. Billy, thanks for doing this, my friend.
Nick, it's good to be with you again. This is going to be a really robust exchange. Everybody's excited about GearFest.
Right.
So I think we've got a number of things we can touch upon, and we'll just take it off.
We'll just wing it, as they like to say. Now, just for those watching, my history with you goes way, way back when. In fact, the first time we met, when I first started writing for Guitar World, you probably won't remember this, but one of my second or third assignment, they said, would you like to meet Billy Gibbons in a hotel room in New York and do a lesson about pinch harmonics? It's like, you're going to pay me to do this? Are you kidding me? So we met in a hotel room, became friends. Since then, since that lesson, I dug this thing up, 1991, my friend, a cover story I wrote for you for the Guitarist magazine in England. And over the years, and this is a weird but wonderful segue, one of the highlights of my life, and I'm not saying this to be obsequious, is you send me Christmas presents. You sent me pears one year. I got this wonderful Ranger gut hook from you, which was amazing, in this Happy Holidays from Billy F. Gibbons that I've kept just because it's cool.
Nice.
But around 2005, you sent me something. This is a clumsy but neat segue. You sent me this, which is Rock and Roll Gearhead, your book about hot rods and guitars. And you've just come up with a revised version of this, haven't you?
Yeah, well, you've got a great memory, and our friendship over the years has provided us a great platform to speak on everything that's included in that book. It's not just a guy's book. I think the girls can get an opportunity to enjoy it. The new version, if I could hold this one up.
Oh, cool.
This is a revised, updated version. As you pointed out, 2005, 15 years has allowed us to bring in a number of new guitars into the collection. And of course, where would we be without hot rod cars, going fast and playing loud?
Yeah, it's a magical combination, And I was about to compliment your lighting guy on how well your video is lit, but you just told me before we hit the cameras rolling that you're actually outside in the desert. Pray tell.
We are in Joshua Tree, which is right out between Palm Springs. You've got Las Vegas on the other deep end. Joshua Tree is a rather remarkable place. And just recently, I completed some recordings with my good buddy Josh from Queens of the Stone Age for his desert recordings, number 15 and 16.
Good grief. And
we've discovered another recording compound operated by Mr. Rocco Gardner, just around the corner in Pioneer Town. It's called the Skyline Ranch.
Right.
And it's quite a remarkable facility, and we're making a lot of loud noise. There's no neighbors to bother, so everything's good.
Yeah, and it's safe in the lockdown as well, because social distancing defined, I guess. You're in the desert.
Oh yeah, we're out in the middle. We were visited by a rattlesnake this morning. That's another a wake-up call. Speaking of rattlesnake shaking, we got wise and stepped back and let him have his space.
Yeah, that's a smart move. Yeah, it's not a snare roll. It's a get away from me warning, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And everybody's happy now.
And what takes you to this? Like you mentioned the fact you've been recording with Josh, but this is a Billy Gibbons project, I believe.
It is. This will be our third solo effort.
Oh.
Yeah. The most recent, of course, was The Big Bad Blues,
which is a fine album, I must say.
And that was preceded by our trip down to Havana, Cuba, where we made the Perfectamundo disc.
Of course.
Kind of a kind of a not so unusual return to our Cubano slanglish roots.
Right,
Excuse
right. And who is, I'm guessing, well, I'm not guessing because you told me yesterday, but Matt Sorum's involved again, of course, on the skins.
Yes, I've had Matt under wing along with the left-handed guitar player, Mr. Austin Hanks. And
Nice.
The three of us assembled along with Mr. Elwood Francis, Mr. Gary Moon. We had quite a menagerie putting the BFG Road Show together. And
I bet.
it was so successful and so enjoyable. Everybody was having big fun, and we decided to pick up sticks and lay them down once again. Matt, along with my good friend Tim Montana and his associate, the recording engineer Mike Fiorentino, joins Chad Slosher, and the team is back making headway. We've got some what we think is really good sounds coming along, and of course, thanks to the delivery people and Sweetwater's mail order package, everything that we're using was delivered safe and sound right from the Sweetwater website. All we had to do was go online, punch in what we needed, and here it came. It was great.
It's a wonderful thing, especially in this lockdown. There's nothing more frustrating than being limited to what you can do. But if you don't have the gear to do it, then you're completely up the creek without the proverbial paddle. So good to hear we can help in a small way. Now, talking of the new record, will it be a different avenue, or where are you heading with this one, or don't you know yet?
Well, the creative juices are beginning to flow, and needless to say, that's a good sign.
Right.
I think the message that all of our followers, both your side, my side, and all sides contained, as long as you're having a good time, that seems to manage to get into the grooves. And I believe that's about as good as you can get.
Isn't that a Spinal Tap quote? Have a good time all the time. I think
have a good time all the time. Not a bad thing. It's a good combo.
No, it is. It is. Well, that's what life is ultimately. If you're not having fun, then fix it. Fix it, please. Now, going back to your book and also Tones, you have the wonderful Super 59, and I believe we are doing a promotion with the newly packaged version of the, as he just drops the box, I love the new box, by the way, but we are going to do a promotion with Sweetwater and Magnatone to actually get some signed versions of this out with your amplifiers, which will be splendid.
Correct. The leader of the charge here behind Magnatone is our good friend Ted Kornblum. And Ted, in order to kind of sweeten the package, has made it possible to include a signed copy of the new BFG book, this guy again.
Right.
And it will go along with all of the Magnatone products, the newest being a very interesting creation out of Magnatone's factory, the Magnatone 15. And it's a self-contained combo, single 12-inch speaker with 15 loud watts of power behind it, all tube, of course.
Right.
And the circuit design from Obed Khan and the genius guys at Magnatone have really perfected a way to get not only the clean sounds, but the gain control. There's a master volume, which is kind of unusual for such a small self-contained unit, but
yes,
the master volume will allow you to bring up the gain stage where you can go from clean to raunchy, rough, and raw. It's really a good setup. What makes this particular package of value, you can use it in the studio, you can take it to the stage, you can also take it into the bedroom and plug in the headphones. There's a nice headphone feature on the back. You kill the speaker and put on your headphones, and away you go.
Nice. Now, a lot of people don't realize that a proper 15-watt amp, as opposed to a fake one, the ones that say we hit 15 watts just before it explodes, but I'm sure the Magnatone, like a Marshall or a High Watt or anything good like that, 15 watts is very conservative. And 15 watts is remarkably loud if it's in a well-designed, especially a tube amp. And hence the reason you say on stage, someone would go, you can't use a 15 watts amp on stage. I beg to differ. You can.
Well, yes, you can. There's plenty of headroom in Magnatone's. Their rating for when you say 15 watts, it's by no means anemic. This is a very robust, very powerful output. The transformers are handling the entire circuit, and they deliver with gusto. It's really cool.
With gusto, that's a good word. Which is what you want. You want some gusto behind you at the end of the day.
Gotta have the big G.
The big G indeed. With the big BFG. So yeah, a good combination. And talking of sounds, by the way, you're synonymous with a huge sound. And what surprises a lot of people, surprised me initially until I tried it, is you use remarkably light strings for the gusto of your tone, my friend. Are you still eights?
Well, yeah. Early on, I got the privilege of sharing a dressing room with B.B. King, upon which he said, "Say, do you mind if I have a few strums on your guitar?" Well, at the time, I was thinking to get the big, bad, loud sounds from the blues guys, you had to have super heavy strings. And it just took one or two strums, and B.B. looked at me kind of quizzically, and he said, "Why are you working so hard?" Well, I said, "What exactly does that mean?" And he said, "Well, these strings are so heavy." And I said, "Well, isn't that what you need to get the big, bad sound?" He said, "No." He said, back in the day when there was only one set of strings available, the black diamond, 1 gauge, he said, we used to do a trick. We used to have to throw away the big E string, move everything down one, and then borrow a banjo string to make a light gauge set. But then along comes Jimmy Dunlop from Dunlop Manufacturing, and he accepted the challenge to make something lighter than the lightest gauge up until recently was .008. That was a super slinky on the high end. But now we have the Reverend Willie's Mexican lottery brand, .007 strings. And if you really want to squeeze them out, grab a set of these things. They're really, really cool. What makes it nice, they tune up handily, and they have quite a bit of stretch. They rarely can be found beyond the breaking point. These things have yet to let me down. I don't want to be known as a string breaker.
Right. I love the tagline, safest and cheapest.
Safest and cheapest. That's right. There it is.
So there you have it. Mexican lottery. That's great. So sevens, and I guess because what's interesting, like you talk about the banjo thing, is another guy who's famous for a big sound is Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. And he did the same thing because he lost his fingertips. He had no choice but to use banjo strings. And he was tuning down as well. And everyone goes, really? He was making that sound with those strings? And there's a beautiful flatulence, I'd call it.
Oh, yeah. You get down to like spaghetti strings, super light, and then tuned down to low D. If you really want to get crazy, go to C or even low B. That's where it gets really 4 flat tires on a muddy road. But I find that the Reverend Willie's, they come in 7s. You can get 8s, you can get 9s, you can even get 10s if you need it.
Right.
But they all respond well, as you know. It's no secret that I've been carrying my famous Mexican peso guitar pick, and this thing is there's no give at all to this thing. Once you shave it down and get it machined into the shape of a pick, someone said, "Well, don't you have a problem with such a heavy pick breaking strings?" Not with the alloy that's found in the Mexican lotteries.
That's great.
Call Sweetwater and just hit the add to cart button. It's the Jimmy Dunlop Reverend Willie's Mexican lottery band string. It's pretty good, and it goes good with a peso.
Good old Jimmy. Now, talking of the peso, this is great because that was going to be one of my next questions, and you saved me answering it. How did you get into using a peso in the first place? what drove that? What
Well,
inspired it?
my buddy Jimmy Vaughn and I grew up in Texas together. I was down south and he was up north. I had the uh, group, the Moving Sidewalks, when he was playing with his band, the Chessmen.
Right, right.
And the bass player, Tommy Carter, used to play Fender Precision bass, and he used a quarter. He used a 25-cent piece,
Uh-huh.
and he found it to be so stiff, and it really produced a rather a loud report. The problem with using a quarter is the edges are serrated,
Right,
and it's quite easy to saw through a string very quickly.
right, right.
But I found it rather intriguing and decided to check it out. And from my days spent down in Mexico, the Mexican peso from back in the '60s had a very smooth, non-serrated edge, and
Right.
that's what brought us to it. And of course, even today, if you can find the old pesos, the large size, get a good machinist. I'm still working with Mr. Jimmy Shine out of the Shine Speed Shop over in Orange, California. And Jimmy says, go to the flea market, go find a big sack full of these Peso Picks, and let's bring it back to the machine shop, and we'll get it on. So that's where I've managed to keep a fairly decent supply of these things. They don't break, and they're
That's for
it's the
sure.
way.
Yeah, because interesting, Brian's, I'm sure you know Brian May, the Queen guitar player, he uses a sixpence, but those are also serrated and they're a lot smaller. That's a girthy piece of gusto production there.
Yeah, I spoke with Brian May one afternoon, and we were talking about the resilience of the well, first starting with the guitar strings and then the guitar pickups, and the way that the response comes through with a really stiff plectrum. There's no doubt about it. When there's no give, it's all take by the guitar. I did come across an interesting recent talking about electric guitars. One of my favorites right here, the reissue of the 1961 Les Paul from Gibson. And there's a gentleman originating from Norway who now operates out of the UK, Thomas Nilsson, who runs Cream Tea Pickups.
Uh-huh.
And he's developed a interesting contraption that measures the response. It goes deep within the content of the passive electric guitar pickup. He's now offering a set of pickups which are absolute 100% pure copies of the pickups found in Pearly Gates, my 1959 Sunburst.
Ah, yeah, the Holy Grail guitar.
And they're called the Whisker Bucker pickups,
Of course.
and soon to be found on the Sweetwater website, I'm sure. But yeah, the Cream Tea Whisker Bucker pickup delivers a genuine, a very rich. There's nothing left. Everything is, as I mentioned, 100% accurate. It's pretty amazing.
That's a staggering. And talking of things named Whisker, I mean, this is like the Hot Rod. We were fortunate enough to have Eliminator, thanks to you, in the foyer of Sweetwater for quite a number of months, and a lot of people got a great deal of pleasure of watching that, seeing that legendary that legendary car in person. Hot rods to hot sauce, Whisker
Oh
Bomb.
yeah,
Tell me about this, because you've got me intrigued by that one when you revealed that yesterday.
a good segue. I'm never too far away from holding up the Whisker Bomb hot sauce. You can play the licks loud. You can play them as often as you like. When you take a break, and if you really want to heat things up, you might want to try this rather interesting concoction, Whisker Bomb hot sauce. Pictured on the cover is yours truly, along with Tim Montana.
Yeah, so he's the
And
T's in B's and T's then.
B's and T's, B for Billy, T for Tim. We were in the studio in Nashville, and we took a break, and I asked Tim what he might have been doing in the commissary, He said, well, he said, I was just whipping up a little hot sauce. And I said, well, I've got a recipe. So we put our heads together and we came up with something that everybody that enjoys a little bit of the chili head experience can go for the Whisker Bomb. It's whiskerbomb.com. You can order it online. Possibly soon to dream up a gift package through Sweetwater. That'll be upcoming. As long as you and I can dream it up, I'm sure we can drink it up.
Challenge taken. And what intrigues me too is there's a regular, and then pray tell, it's got to come from your mouth, not mine. What is the name of the hot version of this already hot sauce?
Well, there's two expressions. The Whisker Bomb original, and of course, if you want to step it up, there's the Whisker Bomb Have Mercy Hot.
Have Mercy. Perfect name. Perfect name.
With that in mind, I'm going to take a short break and grab some tortilla chips and sprinkle a little Have Mercy Hot along with the Whisker Bomb original. Can we pick it up here in a second?
Absolutely, yes, we will.
All right.
Whisker Bomb break. Okay, folks, well, Billy's back from his Whisker Bomb journey, and let's continue, my friend. So, you and Tim Montana, I didn't know this, but I did some research. Aside from having the commonality with the beards and the musicality, I didn't know that you two guys wrote a song together called, correct me if I'm wrong, This Beard Came to Party, and the Boston Red Sox actually used it for their preseason theme song in 2013. Tell me a bit about this one. That's fascinating.
Well, baseball fans will certainly remember the turn of events that brought the Red Sox into the land of chin whiskers. They had not seen a winning World Series pennant for so many years, and they were bound and determined to make this particular season a stab at bringing home the bacon. Each player decided they vowed to quit shaving until the end of the season, and they were not gonna shave until they won the pennant. Well, I think a few of the players they probably got a little itchy, and they said, "We better win. This is getting a little scratchy." But at the same time, I was traveling through Nashville, and I met up with Tim. He was in the recording studio with his band, the Shrednecks, Tim Montana and the Shrednecks. Love that name.
It's a perfect name.
And I said, Tim, I understand you guys are working on some new songs. He said, well, yeah. He said, if we can take a moment, perhaps we can write something. And I said, well, what is that song that I heard you guys going over when I first entered the studio? And he said, well, it's kind of corny. I don't know if we really want to chase that down. I said, well, it sounds rather intriguing. I find myself singing along with it. He said, well, it's kind of corny. I said, well, what do you have in mind? He said, well, we call it This Beard Came Here to Party. Well, imagine a guy that looks like me and a guy that looks like T.
Yeah, say no more.
I said, that's low-hanging fruit. I said, let's go ahead and write it. Later that night, we ran into a guy that was actually traveling from Nashville up to Boston, and he heard about the song, and he said, do you mind if I just play it for the team? It might give them a little a morale booster, which he did. They liked it so much it became their theme song for the season, and of course, that's the famous year the Boston Red Sox pulled it out of the hat and won the World Series pennant. That was great.
Wow, talk about the perfect storm.
Oh, yeah.
All of that happening within 24 hours and resulting in that. Fascinating.
Yep.
Now, before, just so you know, folks, Billy's been good, has kindly agreed to show us how he plays as opposed to how someone else interprets his most classic songs. But before we get on to that, before we get on to you giving us the reverend version of the song you wrote, i.e. the correct version, I have to impose on you that this might be a curveball, but the last time we hung out for a considerable amount of time was when you came through Fort Wayne with ZZ Top about a year and a half ago, and we chatted until the wee hours, and you told me this amazing story that came from yourself and Mr. Jeff Beck in a dressing room just after you guys had played. And I always remember you guys, just left Chicago. You always end with the Bond theme. I'm going to throw you that carrot and hopefully you pick it up and run with it. So go, my friend.
Yeah.
I've thrown you in there. Sorry.
Well, it's no secret that the friendship that's existed with both Jeff Beck and myself goes back, as long as longer than ZZ Top even. We met in 1968, and we've maintained a friendship ever since. Jeff's playing is one of those mysterious marvels that I think most guitar players can sit back with arms folded saying, gee whiz, how is that done?
Yep, done
And
that.
nobody but Jeff can really dig into it like he does. He has taken the Fender Stratocaster into places where the designers couldn't dream of going, but nonetheless, Jeff manages to do it. We've enjoyed playing together. We actually wound up joining forces a while back, as you pointed out, coming through Fort Wayne, where the home of Sweetwater. Jeff Beck was on the bill with us, and we decided early on that it would be quite a bit of fun to end the evening with Jeff Beck becoming the fourth member of ZZ Top, which he did. And we wound up, one of Jeff's favorite ZZ Top songs is one of the ballad, slower things that we've done called Rough Boy.
Love that song.
And someone said one night out of the clear blue, someone said, play something country. And, well, we looked at each other and said, well, are we sure we can do this? And they said, I've seen you guys play 16 tons on YouTube. And we looked at each other and said, I don't remember having done that. But Jeff said, well, maybe it's time we learn it. So indeed, we actually went to YouTube and found where someone had cobbled together a kind of a interesting combination of parts and pieces, which became 16 tons. So whoever did that, Jeff and I are ever grateful for showing us the way into that crazy song, 16 tons.
Love that story. Love that story. So, Billy, thank you so much for taking the time. I can't wait to hear what yourself, Matt, and the guys concoct, because it will be exciting. Please give my very best to Elwood. Lovely guy. And if you wouldn't mind, as you've promised, so I'm going to hold you to it, you were going to show us how to play Tush. Most people want to learn from the master himself, so I guess it's time for some more Whisker Bomb and then some hot licks with the hot sauce.
Why don't we try just that? And let me just show you a few things so we can learn how to play it as we recorded it way back when.
Perfect. Thank you. I look forward to that. Let's adjourn with guitar in hand.
To play Tush, it's fairly simple. Remember the two movements, the intro and the verse, the figure repeats. And remember to use your thumb slide.
Well, Billy, thank you so much for that impromptu Tush tutorial. I realized that you were using your thumb, but I never realized that your index finger stayed where it was and your thumb moves independently. Quite amazing, my friend.
Yep, you gotta have the thumb slide.
And it's got to be from 1 to 3. It can't be from 2 to 3. It's got to be from F to G.
There it is.
And the other thing that is a lot of people don't realize that when it actually gets to the verse, the riff effectively truncates. It shortens, doesn't it?
It gets shorter. The intro is the longer movement, and once the singing begins, you just cut it in half and repeat. So it's a little tricky, but once you understand that there's just two movements in the tonic, then everything goes from there.
Gotcha. Now, I've got a quick question for you. So that song was recorded way back in '75 on the great Fandango album. If someone had told you in the mid-'70s that 45 years from now, Billy, you will be doing something via phone and a satellite, talking to some English idiot in Indiana teaching Tush riff. Would you have believed them, or would you have said they were nuts?
Well, as long as you stay, the word is on the street. ZZ Top is the same three guys playing the same three chords, and there it is. It doesn't have to change too much.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so you're now in year 51, which is quite staggering. The same three guys with the same 3 or maybe 12 chords. But whatever you're doing, my last question to you would be, would you have any advice to hand on to someone, either young or old, who would love to blaze a trail of the length and duration of yours? 51 years is remarkable, longer than most marriages, as you said on that little old band from Texas documentary, which is amazing, by the way, the Netflix thing. What would your advice be?
I think we go, yes. The words from the wise, B.B. King told me the most usable phrase was, learn to play what you want to hear. And I think if that's your starting platform, it's a pretty good way to begin.
Right, and as long as you can find 2 or 3 other people who also like to play the same stuff that you like to hear, then it's a winning formula, I guess.
Yeah. By the way, before we let this timer expire, but in closing, just as a reminder, be sure and go to Sweetwater and get your Jimmy Dunlop version of the Reverend Willie's Mexican Lottery brand Super Light Gauge strings, another B.B. King thing. And as we've spoken earlier, Ted Kornblum is joining Sweetwater with a great promotion. And don't forget this new book, Billy F. Gibbons' Rock and Roll Gearhead. I think it's going to be fine.
I think it's been great. Well, all that's left to say, really, Billy, is thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. And here's to another 51 years. It's funny, GBH in England is an acronym from a crime called grievous bodily harm. As you probably know, it's also the name of a wonderful punk band. In my opinion, in ZZ world, GBH is actually the secret, or one would say maybe the essential formula for the recipe that is ZZ Top. And it's not grievous bodily harm, it's Gibbons, Beard, Hill.
That it is.
End of story, GBH, my friend. So thanks for doing what you do, and hopefully I'll see you soon on the road, and can't wait to hear the new record.
Thanks, Nick. My best to you, my best to Sweetwater, and to all the great friends, fans, and followers around the globe. We'll see you again soon.
Great. Thank you, Billy. Cheers.